So I've debriefed and I've come to the conclusion that my stance on Chris Tucker's monologue at the Oscars is cooning. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm insulted that he would call Jada Pinkett Smith irrelevant. Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith have created some of the biggest 4th of July weekends in the history of box office. Whether you have a down movie or an up movie, but to call her irrelevant is just beyond me. And you know what takes the cake is when he brought up another black woman, her being Stacey Dash, to create a joke by defaming her. But at the end of the day, to the people pushing the checks and signing the checks, she's a black woman. And you can't present a black woman in a negative light in front of a white audience. And that's just plain and simple. That was disgusting. And so the joke of the day now, all the black people, all the black women across the world are laughing because Stacey Dash looked like a fool. But more importantly, on that night, Chris Rock was the president of all black people. And Stacey Dash was the first lady for black people because she represented all black women. For real. Like, she was the example of what a black woman is. And for a black man to defame a black woman in that circle is just appalling. Like, I had a conversation with a guy who says Floyd Mayweather don't give money. He has all this money in the world and never gives. And then he went on to say, but Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, I says, whenever you're degrading a black man, you can't use a white example as a superior. And I said, if you using Floyd in a negative light, give a black man in a positive light. Because if there's two Mexicans, one Asian, two white guys, they're thinking, or if you're even having a conversation with the young black men, they're like, wow, white people are just so much better. And that's social programming. You know, how we believe that in order for us to prove a point, we have to defame ourselves and then tell white people they're wrong. No, if you're wrong, you're wrong. And 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 white in this video is a synonym for bigotry, hatred, and so on and so forth. So there are great white people in the world. I've had some great white teachers, and but I'm unapologetic about loving being black and loving at the best of my abilities to be an independent thinker. And like I read something the other day, who's it says black people wasn't lazy when they were working for free, but now when they get paid, they're considered lazy employees. You know, it's just systemic racism and social programming. You know, and Chris Rock said we had bigger issues like police shootings, and we had lynchings 400 years ago. Shit, for that matter, 60 years ago. But what Chris Rock fails to understand is everything matters. You know, there's a butterfly effect. So if Chris Rock stands up, guess what? Wow, on the biggest night, then guess what? LeBron stands up. Then guess what? The teacher in Ohio stands up. Then guess what? So there's a trickle down effect or a trickle up effect, depending on your vernacular. And for him to say that there are bigger issues, no, everything matters in this world. You have to take a stand and stand for something. Chris Rock cracked jokes, right? You crack jokes, right? And you crack jokes about the oppression of a black man in every stand up that he does. And he didn't lead by example. If he would have came out instead of making jokes, had a one man show, what Kendrick Lamar did, what Beyonce did, get straight to the point. We don't need you to filibuster for 6 minutes and crack jokes and defame black people and black men to get to your point. I am just, and in order to stand firm in a storm, you have to know that the shelter that you're in is firm. The house that you've built is firm. And Chris Rock's house is not firm. All these years, Chris Rock, I've listened to him. Bring the Pain, I think it was his first stand up, whatever. Hilarious. I mean, when I say beyond hilarious, he's a clever writer. You can tell that he's probably had some formal type of education just because of his diction and his higher order thinking skills. It's prevalent and it's completely obvious. But the difference between knowledge and wisdom is one word. It's application. If you lack application, that means the ability to do something, to put things in motion, then you can never be wise. You can only have knowledge. And it's just beside me. Them being present. I saw a picture with with Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and Kevin Hart all together at the Oscars. Them being present validates the Oscars. Like I'll give you guys examples about my life. When I was trying to get a scholarship, they says I'm talking about Chris Rock's filibustering for 5 minutes and then telling his story, filibustering, downgrading black people, and didn't get into the white joke. It's like telling me when I'm in high school trying to get a scholarship, you're a great athlete, but you're too short. Or telling a fat girl, you're beautiful, but you're overweight. Or telling a white kid, man, you play exceptionally hard. You're like a coach on the floor. You're basically telling him you're unathletic. You're basically telling me I'm too short. You're basically telling the girl, you're too fat. And that's basically what happened that night. You can't slap someone and then pick them up, or you can't punch them and then pick them up. What's the point? Pick a side. And I think if Chris Rock was there, he needs to sit on the stool as if like Bill Cosby would have done. I'm not sure if you've seen Bill Cosby stand up. He sits in a lazy boy chair and does comedy. And that's what I thought Chris Rock should have did. Should have had a one-man show. Did an exceptional job doing a one-man show. And I thought it would have went much further than this. The Stacey Dash thing was awkward. It wasn't funny to me. It was real awkward. But you got to get to the root of the problem. We are the entertainment part of the business. For example, I'm going to take this to a higher level. If all these great Black and Latino athletes, I don't believe in separation because the world is too global now. So I don't believe in separation, but what I do believe in is empowerment. And if LeBron James goes to Howard for a year, if Kevin Durant goes to Southern instead of Texas for a year, if Carmelo Anthony goes to Norfolk State for a year as opposed to going to Syracuse, you know what that does? You know what that does for the black community? We have to be cognizant. I live in California. We have a school called Mater Dei. Mater Dei has a coach named Gary McKnight who's been around for 30 years. And I've seen black parents leave South Central LA or the LA Basin, take their kid to Orange County, live above their means, and the kid comes back with a marginal basketball scholarship. Don't you think he would have had the same opportunities? If you got to build it, your job is to build a legacy. Your job is not to live for your first name. It's about your last name. It's about your legacy. And that was not a legacy moment for Chris Tucker. At the end of the day, 2 years from now, we're going to be like, when we're debriefed, when we're non-emotional about this issue, we're going to be like, Chris Rock did a terrible job, and it was a parallel move that he did. Parallel moves are cool. They're not great moves. You want to continuously grow, but because we're human, we're flawed humans, we're going to have an ebb and flow. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go left, it's going to go right. But the one thing about the extra mile, there's no traffic on the extra mile. No matter if you had an impoverished background like me, you put in the extra work, there's less people over there. Or since this is a boxing channel, the greatest example we can give is Floyd Mayweather. Never really formally educated, been boxing since he was a kid. Dad been to jail. I've met his dad, obviously, met his mom, and guess what? He made $300 million in 36 minutes. If that was his goal, was to have the biggest night in boxing history, he did it. So I encourage all you guys, get on that extra mile. There's no traffic. It's going to be a lot of congestion if you want to be mediocre, but if you just want to go par for course, you can be mediocre. And Chris Rock was mediocre. Kevin Hart, mediocre. Just his presence. I don't know if he said anything. I didn't watch the Oscars, so I don't know all the highlights. I just watched the monologue and I watched the Stacey Dash joke because people told me to watch it. And I listened to I read all your comments. Don't think every comment on my channel I read. I don't have a big channel. I have 1,300 subscribers. So every comment that goes on my channel, I actually read. So I've read the comments from, I thought he did a great job. I appreciate it. Excellent video. To the video was not produced well. I've heard them all. But remember, the message is always more important than the messenger. No matter how you slice the pie. It doesn't matter if, I'll give you a great example of that. If your brother tells you need to lose 20 pounds, you're going to tell your brother, forget you. Fuck you. I ain't listening to you. If a complete stranger in the gym tells you, I can help you lose 20 pounds, you're going to listen to them. I've had the greatest conversation of my life with complete strangers on airplanes. I'm being dead ass with you, and them telling them my problems, me telling them their problems, and it's funny when you're stuck to someone for 5 hours, you have to be comfortable. You have to create some type of medium where both of you guys can be comfortable and coexist. But getting back to Chris Rock, man, tweet this to Chris Rock because without a doubt, he's going through all the comments, hashtag Chris Rock Oscars. No doubt, because he's human. So don't think that he's not reading these or watching these videos. He's going to watch it. He's going to listen. And I hope that it gets to him because he has to understand the broader picture. Yes, he's hilarious. Chris Rock is I don't think Chris Rock is filthy rich. I mean, he's been in the game for a long time, but if you're working, you're not filthy rich. Now, let's be candidly honest. You know what filthy rich is? Jay-Z. Filthy rich, Floyd Mayweather, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. They move when they want to move. When you're hired by someone to do a job, that means there's someone above you. Someone is signing your checks. So I'm yes, I think it's cooning. You have to stand firm, as I said earlier. When the storm comes, you have to believe that the house you built can withstand that storm. And you either sit in the basement or sit in your living room and wait for it to pass. That's it. If you don't believe it, you go to a storm shelter in your neighborhood. When they ring those sirens, you go to your hurricane center and you sit there and they feed you and you stay there overnight. And then you go home the next day or 2 days or a week later. And I just think we can do much better. And I saw Oprah appreciated it. Man, it's just amazing, man, how we've become so docile and so tame. It's cool to be tame now. It's cool to filibuster and berate and birate black people. You have to birate your culture to tell a white person they're wrong. Chris Rock. I'm so quick to say Chris Tucker. Chris Rock could not just go straight into saying, yes, the Oscars is racist. Yes,